Yeah, and with our lines open, we continue our chat with Dr. Darren Green. That number, once again, is 083-9133-728. And previously, I concluded that stress is not always a bad thing.
It isn't. No, it can enhance performance. It can force you to actually get off your butt and do something about certain things and help you to change boundaries and move into new realms of success.
Yes. And earlier on, we also spoke about fight or flight, the fact that the caveman was confronted with all these kinds of dangers that forced him into these stressful situations. But obviously, in the modern day world, it's not the same. We're not, dealing with survival from an attack from a lion.
Not from a lion, but from other things.
Yes. So what are the other things that trigger these kinds of stresses, the similar kind of stresses of fight or flight in the modern day?
So materialism, a perception of success and what success is and what happiness is, for example. We all assume that to be happy, we need to acquire goods, acquire resources. But the problem is there are resources that are vital to sustaining you and keeping you alive. And then there are resources that are just supplementary. You know, your yacht, your boat, your beach house, etc.
Are those not necessary for survival?
Those are not necessary for survival, but they do add to quality of life for some people and give them it's almost like a bit of the thriving mentality, So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves regarding our perception of happiness, and in order to fulfill that by world standards, we then get into the rat race and we work and grind to a place where we actually feel dissatisfied until we are there. And when we get there, we move the milestone or we move the boundary. So there's constantly this rush of performance anxiety for many people, and uncertainty obviously also drives it. So we tend to focus on negative things around us that make us obviously then stress about the future, insecurity, etc. But what about crime as well? I mean,
what are the long-term effects of having this stress continually, impacting your body, influencing your neurosenses and how your brain works, your heart? What are the long-term effects of this?
Chronic stress leads to adrenal fatigue, it can. So above your kidneys, there's a gland called the adrenal gland that pumps, obviously, adrenal gland, and also manufactures cortisol, which is a steroid, which is a stress-related hormone. It's released while you sleep at night, reaches a peak, and then tapers off as we go into the day to face stressful conditions. But from that chronic activity and exposure to chronic overstress, you could actually burn out that gland, for example. The health devastation that comes with chronic stress are things like, obviously, physically feeling unwell, and then dealing with things like insomnia, because you're awake and stimulated all the time, high blood pressure, even heart disease, etc. So many effects.
Let's take a quick call right now. Anonymous is on the line from Cape Town. Good morning, Anonymous. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. We can hear your voice. What is your question or your comment regarding our topic this morning?
Good morning. I'd like to find out, my son has a very stressful job.
What is that job?
He's a salesman.
Would
it cause him to have a bleeding nose?
Great question. So I guess some of the symptomatic reactions of stress, something like a bleeding nose, is that perhaps a result of stress at work?
So high blood pressure can be associated with a bleeding nose. So that would be one of the root causes, firstly. Secondly, I think the change in season is actually more likely. Dry air, the scabs that form in the nose, a bit of change in the temperature, the humidity content, the most common cause. And heat, obviously. You'll find people often have nosebleeds in the sun.
Yes.
And the capillaries burst in the nose and then they have a nosebleed, but it's self-limiting and stops. Recurrent nosebleeds are something worth that need to be checked out. Can be cauterized, but there also could be a clotting deficiency in the blood that needs to be excluded. So in this case, certainly associations of stress and nosebleeds, definitely look at high blood pressure. But definitely have it checked out if it's a recurrent problem.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Darren Green. Please keep those calls coming in, 083-9133-728. We'll talk about how to manage stress very shortly, including a very interesting fact of what happens to the brain that I was talking to Dr. Darren Green right now when you are experiencing stress. But luckily here on your Feel Good Breakfast Show, we're all just about chilling out, man. Holidays. We bring the feel good vibes, man.
Just chill.